Rodolfo Quiros, FAO consultant, sprak gisteren tijdens de high-level seminar voor Reducing Agribusiness Financing Risk over kader voor de beoordeling van landbouwrisico's. We voeren u terug naar het moment.
Of topics that are usually addressed by credit officers. Many of you that come from the banking sector will see that typical topics that a credit officer will look. I don't want to stay here too much. I just want to highlight something. Markets, it should be first in any list. If we don't have a market where the farmer or the agribusiness is going to produce, then we have nothing. The rest has no sense. Labor, I am highlighting labor right here because the smaller the farm, the smaller the household that is behind that activity, we will have intertwined decisions regarding the household and the firm, and risk-wise that has consequences as well. Here there's a rest of the list of things that a credit officer will probably be doing, looking at total expenses, production, sales prices, total income, financing. He will be asking the farmer if he is financing its farm in other places, and the farmer will say what? He will say, no, you're the first place that I'm knocking the door, and we don't know. And that's a big constraint that if we don't have a credit bureau or any type of information agency within the supervisory entity, or another set of analysis will be conducted by credit officers, preparing financial statement, cash flows, guarantees. I just said preparing financial statements. If it is a small farmer, forget about financial statements. He has no financial statements. Those statements have to be constructed by the credit officer, and that is not all the time being done by banks, or credit officers are not necessarily trained by that, or they rather work with larger farmers that already have some financial statements prepared by an accountant. But with all this information, the credit officer will decide if there's capability to pay and hopefully willingness to pay. But willingness to pay is not that easy, and we will look in a minute all the risks that are there that will make it difficult for credit officers to identify willingness to pay with the typical analysis that a regulated financial institution will do. But anyway, if he determines that there's capability and willingness to pay, then he will decide if that applicant is credit worthy and if he's going to give a loan or not to him. But the risk involved in lending to that person do not end there. So I want to take a little more of your time to conceptualize the type of risks that are involved in ag financing. And we have a series of barriers that we will look, and the first set of barriers are those for investing and financing in agriculture, and we have what we call exogenous systemic risk. Exogenous just means that it's outside the farm. It is a risk that it is not born in the farm, but it comes from different origins, but outside the farm. And systemic, it means that it is affecting in a general manner. It is not affecting only one farm or only one household, but a series of households in a general manner. And the other set of risks that we will look at are those that are called idiosyncratic risk. And this, opposite to the one before, this is specific, this is distinctive. It can be for one household, for one farm, or perhaps to a certain crop, producers of a certain crop. So going first with the exogenous systemic risk, I just want to give you an overview. I'm not going to say too much on each of them. The first exogenous systemic risk are related climate, pest, natural disasters. And these are important because for small farmers in particular, which have very few assets, if there's a catastrophe, then they may lose the few assets that they have, or the soil of their land may be damaged. And is there a crop insurance here in Suriname? I understand that there isn't, which is something that happens in other countries. Crop insurance in many countries have been a headache, have been a source of losses for the state when there were state crop insurance systems. So there's a big challenge there, but in many countries there have been advancements in that direction. A second risk, exogenous systemic risk, is that associated with markets. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what the price will be of inputs, of outputs, and as these 4 last years have shown, that they can change quickly in one direction or the other, or the uncertainty regarding access to factors of production, water, labor, qualified labor, public utilities. Advancing with this list of risk, here we have one that represents a big challenge. Is the absence of institutions that allow for the design and compliance of contracts that facilitate market transactions. In some countries, there's not a legal system or a judicial process, an agile judicial process. I think in any country, there's not an agile judicial process, but at least a reliable judicial and legal system. That's a basic institution to have. But next to this, we also need other agencies, like it was mentioned by the minister, having a movable asset registry for farmers that do not have land, or whose land it is of communal property. Like the minister was saying, that land cannot use for guarantee purposes, so their assets are the only thing that they could use as a guarantee. But if there's not a registry, then there's not much that can be done by that.